Ich habe eine Bitte an die Damen und Herren, dass wir vielleicht während der Pressekonferenz, da sie sehr gut besucht ist, das Rauchen für diese Zeit einstellen. Das wäre sehr nett. Schönen Dank.
Other side. Thank you. One more. Another one, please. Yeah, bullet. Excuse me. Thank you. And you also. Okay. Okay. Right.
Okay, have a seat. If you want, English is your channel, just in case, okay?
Oh, okay.
You stick to number 2 if you need it. Even if it's French, Russian, it's number 2, okay? Would you like a mineral water? No, you said no?
No, thanks.
Okay. So, meine Damen und Herren, darf ich bitte um Ruhe nachsuchen und die Fotografen bitten, sich in die Kniebeuge zu begeben. Ich danke. Okay, können wir bitte anfangen? Wir gehen ja noch nicht weg. Okay. Ja, he knows everything about it. Meine Damen und Herren, ich begrüße Sie recht herzlich und möchte jetzt die Pressekonferenz anlässlich des amerikanischen Wettbewerbbeitrages Das Schweigen der Lämmer eröffnen. Ich darf Ihnen unseren Gast vorstellen. Es ist der Darsteller des Dr. Lecter, Anthony Hopkins. One moment. Ich möchte noch darauf hinweisen, dass wir hier auf der linken Seite einen Rechtsexperten haben für Serienmordfälle. Es ist ja ein sehr ungewöhnlicher Serienmord und viele von uns, die damit nichts zu tun hatten bisher, denken, das sind Fantasien, nicht? Also auf der linken Seite ist ein Experte. Wenn Sie Fragen haben zu solchen Dingen, dann haben wir Expertise, Knowledge. Es ist Herr Roland Hasel. Vielleicht. Das Forum ist eröffnet. Ihre Fragen bitte. There's a question on the right-hand side.
Yes. I suppose perhaps we could say that this film gives us a look at America's terrorists. But would you say that perhaps the film is a metaphor, that America is perhaps eating itself and skinning itself alive?
I think yes, I do. I think what I found very overpowering in the film when I watched it was because of Jonathan Demme's direction, especially at the beginning of the film when Jodie Foster is running on the FBI course, and you see all those FBI trainees and FBI students training as if they're training for the great catastrophe that seems to be coming. I think it is, I found it a very sad film, especially when the whole film is very sad, but when Jodie Foster, Clarice Starling, visits the dead girl's home and that urban poverty, the stripped wasteland of America, I think it is a metaphor. I think it is also some strangely Gothic fairy tale in a way, some great Gothic allegory of the darkness of the human soul and how Hannibal Lecter represents the darkness in all of us and invites Clarice Starling into the realms of darkness to examine her own inner devils, and then he presents her and gives her the courage to kill the beast which lurks in all of us, every single human being, in all nations.
Eine Zusatzfrage, an additional question. Can we have the microphone? Thanks.
Yes, do you think that Clarice Starling is equally capable of committing the murders as the murderer?
Well, she certainly kills the monster. Yes, I think we're all capable of it. Every one of us.
There's a question at the far end, on the right-hand side.
Eine Frage an Herrn Hase. Der Hannibal Lecter und dieser Jamie Gump sind ja nun beide sehr extreme Charaktere. Sind die jetzt, ist sowas auch in der Realität möglich, solche Extremcharaktere, oder ist es eine Hyperkreation des Drehbuchautors?
Just one moment. Please, das Mikrofon. We have an answer of our expert.
Ich könnte höchstens dazu sagen, dass es keinen einheitlichen Charakter des Massenmörders gibt. Es ist bisher nie festgestellt worden, dass da eine einheitliche Linie oder einheitliche Beweggründe da wären. Dieser Massenmörder, den wir hier haben, der ist mit Sicherheit etwas komödiantisch überspitzt. Aber wenn Sie die Massenmörder in der Bundesrepublik sehen, wie Harman, der 24 Opfern die Kehle durchgebissen hat, dann ergeben sich von der Grausamkeit der Darstellungen keine großen Unterschiede zur Realität. Ich weiß nicht, ob die Frage dadurch beantwortet ist.
Okay, do you want to comment this?
Do I think it's exaggerated?
Yes.
Well, I think you'd have to ask a psychologist, or as our friend has just expressed, it probably is an exaggeration. I read the trial of Ted Bundy, the killer in America, and he seemed almost like a prototype of Hannibal Lecter, a man who seemed to be very attractive and seductive and compelling and charismatic. I've seen, as probably all have seen, brief shots of Charles Manson. He's a pretty frightening, awesome looking extreme character, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to ask a psychologist or a sociologist if these two characters are extremes. They probably are.
Okay, we have a question here in the middle. Could you?
First, Mr. Hopkins, it's a wonderful performance, and I think that you certainly deserve to be applauded for your work. But I wanted to ask a question that you may or may not be able to answer. Maybe Mr. Demme, Jonathan Demme, if he was here, would. But it has to do with the serial killer as a homosexual. As you know, there's been some controversy about this film from homosexual groups about the portrayal of the killer as a homosexual. 2 major Hollywood features have been made about serial killers. One called The Laughing Policeman about 8 years ago, who was a homosexual set in San Francisco killing women, and now this film. How do you feel with the kind of criticism that's being directed at this movie, because the portrayal of the serial killer is seen by homosexual groups as a homosexual, and the role of the homosexual in the society today in relationship to women?
I didn't actually know that I hadn't heard about that criticism being leveled at the movie. I hadn't actually thought about it before. And the other movie, The Laughing Policeman, I don't know, haven't seen that. Lecter, I know, says that James Gumb is not a transvestite. He has another mental disturbance.
But he says he was the lover of his patient.
Yes. I don't know, I haven't thought about that. I'm sorry, I can't comment.
Okay, there's a question on the far end, on the right-hand side. This lady.
Es besteht ja das, kann ich in Deutsch fragen?
Ja, bitte.
Es besteht ja das Phänomen, dass Filme wie Ihre, die psychotische Mörder und ihre Taten zeigen, in Menschen, die psychisch labil sind, Nachahmungstrieb auslösen. Muss man nicht allein wegen dieser Gefahr, dass die Produktion solcher Filme unterlassen?
Let's ask what's his name. Let's ask.
Okay, can we have your question? Möchten Sie darauf
I'm going to
antworten?
speak English, so it's okay.
Sorry. Would you like to answer this?
Mit Sicherheit kann es vorkommen, dass wenn einer besonders disponiert ist und jetzt einen solchen Film sieht, da gewisse, sage ich in Anführungszeichen, Leidenschaften vielleicht geweckt werden oder gewisse Energien freigesetzt werden. Aber davor kann doch ein solcher Film nie schützen. Wir dürften nie im Film irgendein negatives Verhalten der Gesellschaft zeigen, weil dann immer irgendeine Energie freigelegt wird. Ich weiß nicht, ob das richtige Argument ist, das gegen den Film sprechen sollte. Denn es geht ja letztlich nur darum, dass gewisse Grausamkeiten dargestellt werden in diesem Film und dann fragt man sich, sind diese Grausamkeiten jetzt nun frei erfunden, sind sie reine Erfindung dieses Autors oder des Regisseurs in der Darstellung oder kommen die in der Realität tatsächlich vor? Und in der Realität meine ich, und das ist die einzige Frage, sind diese Grausamkeiten durch Filme nicht zu überbieten? Und hier ist das, wollte man einen Massenmörder wahrscheinlich darstellen und hat nur halt das unbedingt Notwendige auch gezeigt. Direkte, abartige Darstellungen finden in diesem Film nicht statt. Deswegen kann ich die Frage eigentlich nicht beantworten. Natürlich, ob gewisse Energien freigesetzt werden in jemanden, der so etwas sieht, dann dürften wir wirklich nur mehr Filme zeigen, die ein Wohlverhalten der Gesellschaft nur mehr aufzeigen.
Dankeschön.
I would like to add that I think a real obscenity is actually showing a Superman landing in a helicopter with a great Kalashnikov gun strapped with bullets and, killing people. I think that's an obscenity, and that's been seen a lot in American cinema. They sort of chainsaw massacre films or the Rambo films. I think they are really disturbed films because that is creating a Superman. I don't want to name names, but that's creating a kind of Superman anti-human hero, which is deeply disturbed. I think that really is pornography. But as Franz just commented, I think these cruelties and these horrors, they do exist. They are with us daily in our lives and throughout the world. And I really don't consider this an exploitation movie, as they say in America.
Jetzt die Dame.
It's a very beautiful performance, and I'd be curious how you mentioned the Ted Bundy book, what else you did, and whether there were specific things that you took, how you prepared for the role, and whether there were actual specific physical things that you took from some source that, and so on. Just a little bit about what you did.
The only research I did was I read Truman Capote's book, In Cold Blood, and I took a clue from that when Perry, the young killer who was later executed, killed that family, he felt completely detached and as if he was standing outside the event itself. And I put together in my layman way, because I'm not a psychologist, I'm no expert, I put together the fact that probably Hannibal Lecter was a schizophrenic. But in actual preparation, I wouldn't know what motivates Lecter. I don't understand his disturbance, except when I read the script, I understood intuitively how to play him for some reason, which doesn't say much for my mental health, maybe. But I don't feel cruel in myself. But I didn't do a great preparation. When I read the script, I heard the voice, I saw how he looked. I suppose that's the skill of an actor. I've been around for some time. I'm an experienced actor, and I'm very relaxed as an actor, so I keep my process very simple, and I respond to intuitive voices within me, I suppose, to make it sound very mystical. But I simply learn the lines and show up on time and stand in front of the camera, whatever I have to do. But I think I just played him very intuitively. I think I have an unconscious fascination for the darker side of nature, of human nature. I'm aware of it very much in my own self, the dark, morbid side of my own nature from an early childhood. But I've never acted on those impulses. As Alfred Hitchcock says, what is the first thing we do when we see a young baby? We go, boo. He was asked, why do people like having a fright? People go to the cinema because they want to be scared. We all went to see Psycho, and I was... So I don't know the process. I'm no expert in any field of psychology or, sociology. I do the job and I act intuitively. I don't understand the process. So as I don't understand it, I don't try to examine it and mess about with it,
Okay, we have a question there on the left-hand side. I can't see where. There. Okay, on the left.
Die Gestalt, die Sie darstellen in diesem Film, ist zweifellos die interessanteste. Dennoch wird um diesen Film geworben als um einen Psycho- oder Psychothriller. Das eben empfinde ich als beleidigend für alle Filme, die es wirklich sind. Denn dieser Film vermisst also das Wichtigste, um das zu sein, und das ist eben ein Tiefgang. Und diesen Tiefgang vermisst er deswegen, weil es in diesem Film nicht um den Täter geht. Wir erfahren nichts von dem Täter, auch nichts von den Opfern, sondern die Rolle, die uns interessiert, ist der Cop eigentlich. Und dieser Cop ist nicht mal so interessant wie der Sherlock Holmes von Conan Doyle. Also insofern ist an diesem Film das Spannende einfach das Eklige. Und ich würde gerne also Ihren Kommentar, dass Sie mich sehr beeindruckt haben in Ihrer Darstellung der Rolle, würde ich gerne also ausgerechnet Ihren Kommentar dazu hören. Selbst wenn der Regisseur hier wäre, würde ich Sie das fragen.
He's not. Well, I can't comment for the director. I can't comment for Tom Harris, the writer, or the screenplay. I found it a very interesting film to appear in, though, so I can't make any comment there. But fair enough.
Okay, we have a question on the left-hand side.
I remember a former film of you called Magic, so there might be a special interest from yourself in, let's say, the darker side of a character. Could you tell me anything about that, and what's so fascinating and exciting to be, let's say, the dark side in a movie and the bad guy?
I don't know why they give me these parts to play. I feel relatively uncomplicated. I don't, in all sincerity, feel that I'm crazy or cruel. In fact, I feel quite the opposite to that. I don't feel immensely complicated. I've had my complications in my own life, as we all have. But so I don't know why. I've played a lot of characters, men who are stretched to the breaking point. I don't know what is in my personality that inspires this casting. However, they have been very interesting parts to play. So I can't really comment on why I'm given these parts. I would like to do something quite light and cheerful sometime, but however.
There's a question here in the middle. Could you please... Thank you.
You just mentioned the movie Psycho. Towards the end of Psycho, after the story's over, actually, we get this long-winded speech where the psychologist explained what exactly happened. Now, this was very boring in Psycho. It was the most boring part of the movie, as a matter of fact. Nevertheless, it was helpful for audiences to understand what they had actually seen. In this movie, I sort of missed that, and I wonder, and again, I have to ask you to speak for Jonathan Demme here, because he's not here. but maybe you know why Demi left this explanation out that might have made it easier for an unsuspecting audience to understand what they have seen.
I wish I could answer for Jonathan Demme, but I can't answer. Sorry.
We have a question here on the...
I think you have to ask Tom Harris that, or the screenplay writer. But there is only, within a movie, you can only, you're very limited on time, whatever it is, 2 hours or under 2 hours, so you can't put everything in. But I don't know.
There's a question here.
Mr. Hopkins, is there any similarity in the character in this movie and the character of the newspaper magnate that you played on the stage in London?
Oh, Lambert LaRue.
Yes.
Is there any comparison?
Is there anything that they have in common in terms of the character? They're both compelling, powerful.
Yes, I think, well, they were both opposite characters. I mean, Lambert LaRue was again, he was the monster from the Dark Lagoon. But he was, he wasn't a criminal, and, he wasn't a psychopath. But what he was a man who has no doubt, no uncertainty. And this is what Hannibal Lecter is. I think what these characters, these strangely monstrous characters, their through line of action is that they have no doubts. They move on their objective like Jaws, that shark, And I think that is the essence. We had a prime minister who was like that recently, She had no doubts about anything. And that's what made her very fascinating at the beginning of her reign, until it became grotesque. And, I think that is what is so charismatic and magnetic about these people, Lambert LaRue and Lecter, is because they magnetize to themselves people because they are so certain, they have no doubts, they have perfect logic, they have perfect reason. And that's what makes them awesome and terrifying and very, very dangerous. And I think it elicits from us the response of awe, because we would secretly like to be as certain as that. It would be wonderful to wake up in the morning and discover that you're a machine instead of a prey to your own feelings and passions and doubts and despairs and fears. It would be wonderful, but also monstrous, to live without fear and to live without doubt. But that's not possible because we are very fragile, frail. We are nothing, in fact. But I think the arch madness is to believe that you're everything. I think Lecter's problem and Lambert LaRue's problem and maybe Margaret Thatcher's problem is that they believed that they were omnipotent. And no one is omnipotent. And what happens in the end is that they finally destroy themselves somehow, either destroy their careers or destroy themselves physically or whatever. But that, I think, is the through line, is that pure certainty, insane certainty, that pure logic of insanity. But again, I'm not an expert. I don't understand what is the borderline between sanity and insanity.
How did you actually get the job? I mean, the role. Was it sent to you, the script, and how was it?
Yes, it was sent to me, and my agent said, you ought to read this, and I read it, and I had some initial doubts about it, but I thought it was a very good script, and it was a very interesting part, and I asked, do they really want me to do it? He said, yes. I said, well, why? He said, well, don't ask questions, just do it. So I did.
Okay, we have a question here.
Ich könnte mir vorstellen, dass Jodie Foster ein ganz anderes Temperament hat als Sie. Vielleicht nochmal von vorne? Ich könnte mir vorstellen, dass Jodie Foster ein ganz anderes Temperament hat als Sie. Vielleicht auch deshalb, weil sie jünger ist. Ich stelle sie mir aufgeregter vor. Stimmt das, oder erzählen Sie doch generell bitte ein bisschen über die Zusammenarbeit mit ihr?
Well, she was one of the best actors I've worked with. She is very direct in her approach to work. She doesn't have that star temperament that some actors and actresses have. Oh, forgive me for using such a chauvinistic actress, but I don't know what do you call female actors? You have actors? Anyway, you do? Yeah. Okay, so in England we sometimes say actress, so forgive me. But no, she was the most uncomplicated, most modest and professional, intelligent female actor I've worked with. She was like a blessing because she showed up on set on time. She didn't demand. she knew exactly what she was doing. I think her great quality, apart from her wonderful talent, is her patience, her forbearance and her goodness to people, and her, I think what she has in abundance is a great deal of compassion, as a human being. I didn't get to know her that well, but I was very fond of her. I liked her very much. I thought she was wonderful. I was working in a relationship like that with Jodie Foster and Jonathan Demme and the rest of the film crew was the happiest experience I've had. I mean, in spite of the horror of the film, they were the kindest, most compassionate. I think, if you're going to do a film like this, you have to have a great deal of compassion. And that's the great quality of Jodie Foster and also of Jonathan Demme, is this real sensitivity. But it was certainly a wonderful experience working with her.
There was a question here on the right-hand side.
Yes. Do you think that perhaps this film promotes the acts which occur within it? Do you think that perhaps the people really want to see this? They really want this. They just don't want to do it themselves.
I don't think so. I don't think people know. I mean, I could ask you: have you ever thought of killing anyone, or have you ever thought of murder? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought of it.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not being facetious because I have many times. No, I know. No, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. No, but I have, and I won't ask everyone in the room, but I've had murderous thoughts. I've wanted to kill. I've actually fantasized about a critic I once remember. An English critic. I wanted to lock him in a cellar. There were a few of them. I wanted to lock them in a cellar, and I wanted to torture them. Only the English ones. But I would never. I wouldn't do it. But I played with the idea. But I think English critics in particular. But as years have gone by, I've learned a bit more wisdom, a bit more compassion, and I think a bit more love and forgiveness. People do their jobs. It's interesting now when you go along through your life, you find people that you disliked a couple of years ago, and you think, what the hell was all that about? I met somebody the other day, a fellow actor who's always been bad, and I saw him in a party, and I thought, what was I worried about? The guy's. He's got his problems. We've all got our problems. But I don't think that people who go to see the movie want to kill. I mean, I don't know, in America, and I know that some people in England who've seen it enjoyed it because it gives them a fright. I don't understand the mechanism of that, but I suppose it's something very primitive. It's a confrontation with our mortality. We have a glimpse of the horror. And it exposes it, as Carl Jung said, we come to a point in our lives we do see over the horizon after sort of midlife, and we see death, and we confront it. And as long as we can accept it totally and absorb it into our system, then we can live life without fear. But once we repress it and push it down, I'm the American, and in my own country as well, this obsession with youth, everyone's jogging, everyone's terrified of death, and it's a denial of death, and that's the unhealthiest state, I think, to be in. I think a good, healthy concept of our mortality is interesting. And I think these films, unless they're the real exploitation movies, I mean, I know that people here will probably have a different opinion of this, but I wouldn't have done this if it was pure exploitation movie. I found it fascinating because it gave me a fright when I read it. But that's all, really.
Wir haben jetzt hier eine Frage.
Hello?
Yes. There's a question here.
Your film, it's really, one can see that it's made by a team of professionals, and it depends, I think it's up to everybody if he wants to see such films or not, but it's very well done and very interesting in this manner. Well, I'm not going to ask you because you are very sincere in your answers, and you said how you felt about fright and, crime and so and so. I would like to ask you a question. After impersonating such characters, if you come across such a situation in real life, you have more courage or you just are more scared? You understand?
Yes, I did actually face that 4 years ago when a very strange man, long before the movie. Yes, I've confronted...
before the movie was done?
Before the movie.
Well, you tell me before and you tell me after. If after impersonating such character you have more guts, or you see such a situation of crime and so you prefer to run?
I think I would run.
Me
Fast.
too.
Fast, yes.
There was question again. There's a question again, this young man.
Yeah, sorry. The other part of my question was, do you think that these types of films, like in the same way that perhaps a Godfather type of film might romanticize and promote this type of life, this type of adventurism, do you think that perhaps this type of film would also promote and romanticize this? Well,
I don't know. I'm glad you mentioned The Godfather. It was one of my favorite films because I think it was I thought it was a greatly constructed film and brilliantly made film, and I don't think Francis Ford Coppola ducked the issue at all. I think he showed us what happens I think he showed us very clearly what happens when James Caan is pulling up at that gate and they just mow him and cut him to pieces and they strangle the man in the car. I don't think that's pornography of violence. I think they just lays in the line saying this is what happens. And I think if Jonathan Demme had actually lingered on Lecter tearing that man's face off, or seen it, I mean, that would have been, but he didn't. He cut away from it, and I think he had to show pieces of it, pieces of the action, but he cut away from it and left it to the mind of the audience. It's interesting watching, actually, listening to the audience when I've seen the film 4 or 5 times now with an audience, and it's interesting listening to an audience's reaction when they know that Lecter has escaped. It's a very strange, and it varies in countries. In England it was different to America, and in Germany, in Berlin this afternoon, it was the same sort of response. There's a kind of strange titillation of, oh, you know what's happening, and it's when people laugh nervously when she goes down into the cellar. I think it strikes a chord in us which we recognize somewhere deep in our subconscious. It's deep in that well of enchantment that exists in all of us from some primitive subconscious. I think that's answered the question. I don't know.
Okay, there's a question at the far end on the right-hand side.
You were telling us something about a strange man 4 years ago. Do you mind to go on?
Oh no, it's just somebody who had a big resentment against me for some reason and made threatening gestures towards me, made life-threatening things, and I confronted him and I saw him and I looked into the face of somebody who was deeply disturbed, and it wasn't very comfortable. But he's still around. But I think, well, you can't live with the fear. You can't live your life with fear, because if we've got to live. We're all mortal. I can't allow fear to bedraggle my life, worrying about what's going to happen. You just get on with it. Yes. I think it's good to feel fear, but it's terrible to let fear overwhelm you. You have to. I think courage is overcoming fear, constantly walking through it. Walking through it all the time. I was frightened coming in here, I'll tell you. But you have to do it. I think it's best to admit one's fears.
There's a question on the left-hand side there.
Mr. Hopkins, don't you see that this is a very calculated end? I mean, if this film is a success, we have Chilton, who is alive, we have Lecter, who is alive, and we have Mrs. Starling, who is well honored for her job. So is there a calculated second part of that movie?
Well, I don't think Chilton's going to live long. I'm going to serve him up with a very nice Chianti. I don't know. I'll have to talk to my... I don't know. It's of course. I hope Tom Harris is writing that book now. And if he's not hurrying up with the book, I'll go and hurry him up myself. Maybe. I'm going to have a nice kidney.
Okay, there's a question at
I'd like to ask you another very personal question. I've heard in New York, just Jesus Christ Superstar, for example, people, the actor, when he went through the streets, came up to him and saw in the actor Jesus Christ. Are you afraid of now the other way around, that people might be frightened of you? Because when I came into the press conference right now, later, and I saw you, it was a kind of a little shock that you are here now, really. I mean, yeah.
What's your phone number?
Tell you later.
Well, I can't really worry about that. Well, I'll see you afterwards.
Okay, we have a question again here in the front. This young man there.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't think the film is an exploitation film, following my questions. And also, I know the feeling you were talking about before. I myself was attacked by Nazis here in Berlin. But my question is, where in the Caribbean does the film end?
Well, we filmed that in Bimini, just off the coast of Florida. It's the very last, that last shot going up the street was the very last shot of the film, in fact. That was last March. It was meant to be a sort of French island that has no extradition, you know, so it was an unidentified island. But we filmed it just off the coast of Florida. It's not in the book, actually. In the book, it was a different scene. But however, they rewrote the scene for us.
When we trust the newspapers, you'll be the super film villain for history. And my question is, what really would you like to do once? Is there an author you would like to play? A specific role you really would like to do?
A role, no. I can't project into the future, so I never, my philosophy is not a plan, but just live for the moment and not expect anything, because life is so strange. No, I don't know. I just, I enjoy working. I enjoy my work, and I enjoy being with people. I enjoy acting very much, so I don't plan. I think the moment I'm asked, you know, what would you like to do, my mind goes blank, you know. So.
Apparently, how was it to work with Demi?
Wonderful. He's the best director I've worked with. He really is. I think because he's mad as well. No, he's a very nice man. He's a very easy man. He's greatly politically active. He's a very compassionate man, and he's very active with a group of anti-apartheid people, and I don't know, I think he's just a very good man, and he's very democratic on set, you know. Everyone is treated with equality, everyone is treated with kindness, and treated like human beings instead of like dirt that some people have. No, he's a very good man.
Where did you bring in changes? I mean, was there anything you really didn't like in one particular scene, and you said, well, we should do it that way? Was it possible?
No, the only scene I felt a bit uncomfortable with was lying in that ambulance with a face mask on. That was the only thing, because we did it too many times, you know. Did about 15 times. It's beginning to smell. So.
There's a question on the left-hand side.
Mr. Hopkins, I also know you very well as a theater actor in London. And because the last films you did in the last 10 years, I mean, most reminding for me was The Elephant Man with David Lynch. And after most of the films we couldn't see in Germany. But are you still playing theater in London, or will you play theater in the future?
Yes, I will. I'm going to see Sir Peter Hall when I go back. He wants me to do something. I don't know what, though. But I've played a lot of Shakespeare recently. I played King Lear 4 years ago, and I played Antony and Cleopatra. I played an American play called M. Butterfly, and I played Pravda, David Hare. So that's 4 big plays. They were long. Lots of performances. It was 3 years' work. I played King Lear 100 times, which is the world record apparently. But I don't think I thought I would never survive it. But it was a pretty hard. It took me 50 performances before I found out what I was supposed to be doing, you know, to get it right. And I think I sort of got it a bit right. And I'd like to have a go at it again in about another 10 years' time, you know. But yes, I would like to go back to the theatre. But I've enjoyed filming so much.
Are there any more questions? Well, Anthony Hopkins,
thank you.
We wish you all the best for your
Thank you, sure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I put my jacket.